Hey, what's up, YouTubers? This is my very first video post on YouTube, and I just kind of caught myself in the middle of going through everything that you see here. All these boxes, organizing them all for 2012, getting everything ready, greasing up the reels, putting oil on them, going through all my DVDs, making sure I have them all, you know, just in general getting ready for 2012. And it's not even January yet, but I kind of wanted to ask everybody watching this video, if you had to pick one lure out on the water, what would it be? If you just fish one lure out on the water, what would that be? One rod, one lure. And my response to that would have to be the spinnerbait. I want to share with you guys a story about this bait that was really interesting to me, but more interesting to the person that was involved in the story. And it happened last year, not this year. It happened last year, and the guy that I had approached at this pond that I was fishing, I walked by him and I had said, "Have you caught anything?" And he said, "No, nothing's biting today." And I says to him, I said, "Well, they're biting over there. I've already caught. I think I had like 4 or 5 fish, and they were all in the spinnerbait." And he goes, "Really?" He goes, "I've used those and I've never caught any bass on them." And this is the typical guy using live bait, bobbers in the water, like 3 rods out. And I told him, I said, I looked at his equipment and I saw his rods, and he had a rod that was like a 6.6 medium heavy, or no, 6.6 medium, and it was like an all-star rod, but he was fishing on the bottom with it. And I told him, I said, if you want, we go back over to the spot where I was catching fish, and I'll put on one of these lures for you, because I'm the type of person I'd rather see other people catching fish besides me. If I know I can catch them, why would I, unless it's like a tournament, why would I not try to help somebody else out? That's what I like to do. And this guy agreed to it. He picked up all his stuff, put all of his other rods in the truck, and we walked over to the windy side of the lake where I had already caught 4 or 5 bass, and they weren't big, but they were fun to catch. And I gave him a chartreuse and white spinnerbait, Terminator to be exact. And you can see those are just the chartreuse willow leaf. And then here's the chartreuse and white in the Oklahomas and the Indianas and the Colorados. So I gave him one of these baits and I told him how to use it. And the first thing he did was he made a cast out in front of him. And I stopped him right there at that point in time and I said, "Don't do that again." And he kind of looked at me puzzled, and I said, "You're fishing it all wrong." And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "You don't fish a spinnerbait out in front of you in open water." And he said, "Well, how do you fish it?" I said, "You fish it parallel to the bank." Now, I can understand some of you probably watching this are saying, "No, I'm wrong." Well, if you're walking a pond and I'm going to use my wall as an example. Let's say the brown piece of wood is the shoreline. And you're over here, right? And there's a fish here, and a fish here, and a fish here. And you walk from point A to point B, and you make a cast out in front of you. Okay? And you bring that lure back towards you, right? So we're all on the same page here. You think that fish, if he was sitting in 2 feet of water or a 1.5 foot of water, didn't see you first approach from point A to point B? And you think even if he did swim out to deeper water to escape the threat, that threat being you, because he sees you, he sees your shadow or your silhouette, so he runs out into deeper water where he's safe. That spinnerbait, if you cast it right in front of him, chances are he's not going to commit to it because you've put him on alert. He's now kind of fearing for his life because he doesn't know what that big tall object, he thinks it's one of those big birds that's going to walk up on him and take a shot at him. Bass, unless they're spawning or unless they're underneath something, a lot of times I'll see this myself when I walk the shoreline. I'll say, why didn't I stop? And I'll see a 3-pounder swim off. I'll say, why didn't I? God, that was stupid of me. Why didn't I stop and parallel the bank and make that cast in front of water that I had not yet fished and bring that spinnerbait past? Not one fish, not two fish, but 3 fish. You see what I'm trying to say? That's why this lure is so effective. You can cover water with it. Once you learn to parallel bank, you can cover so much water. I'll put this spinnerbait in first, maybe 6 inches of water. I'll get it really close to the bank. Sometimes I'll actually cast it up onto the bank and then drag it off and bring it, the 25, 30 yards back, paralleling the shoreline the whole time. And then if I don't get anything doing that maybe 3 times, I'll start working the bait out a little further off the bank. I'll probably start from 6 inches of water to a foot, and I'll work the bait out maybe 3 feet out. And I don't get any strikes there. I usually come out one more time, and then if I don't get anything there, then I know, okay, there's probably no fish here. But usually it's in between the first and the second rotation of cast where I get my fish. Hardly ever are they out on that deepest point, where that would be maybe 5, 6 feet out from the bank. Usually they're in the first, 6 inches to 3.5, 4 feet, 5 feet out. Never really ever beyond that. And if you look a lot of times at your lake and where the vegetation grows, the edge of the vegetation is usually where they're going to be, either on the inside edge or the outside edge. It depends on time of day, time of year, and all that. But it's not hard to catch fish on a spinnerbait. And this guy that I gave the spinnerbait to, when he learned to sidearm cast, he was catching bass in 30 minutes. I told him, I said, walk in front of me and do the same thing you did. And I sat there and I coached this guy. I told him, I said, I'm not going to fish. I said, I'm watching you fish. You're going to catch a bass, and I can guarantee it. And he's kind of got this smile on his face like, yeah, right, there's no fish here. It was like 10 minutes of him doing this. He hooked a 3-pounder, and it was the biggest fish he ever caught in his life. Because remember, this guy fishes with worms on the bottom, so he wasn't fishing in the middle of this pond. It's probably 10 feet deep out in the middle. There's no bass out there. There might be, but the majority of the time, they're going to be up shallow. He fishes a spinnerbait all the time now. So I want to know, all you people watching at home, what's your favorite lure? Just write it in the comments box. You put a comment in, tell me what your favorite lure is, why, a brief description. I'm going to randomly pick a comment. If I get 25 at the end of the first week or 50, I'm going to draw a number. And if I draw, let's say, number 50 or 47 or 26 or whatever, you're going to get a choice of what baits you want. I'm going to not give you 1. I'll not give you 2. I'll give you 3 lures of your choice. So if you want to go jig, jig, rattle trap, or jig, 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 or all 3 rattle traps, the choice is yours. Okay, you can mix and match. You do whatever colors you want. The jigs, there's 2 in black and blue, and there's this green with orange, and a brown with amber red. And the colors of the rattle traps is yellow chrome, like a sexy shad color, and like a threadfin shad color. So let me know what you guys' confidence bait is. Not your favorite lure, because you shouldn't have a favorite. You should have a bait that you have a lot of confidence in. Leave it in the comments box, brief description. I'll draw a number, and good luck.